Daf Yomi, tractate Bava Batra, page 138b, top of the page. It was in the middle of idea of the last line of 138a, which said that if a person on his deathbed said, give 200 dinars to so-and-so, my wife, as is appropriate for her, and she takes the 200 dinars and takes payment of her marriage contract as well. If he said, give her 200 dinars as payment for her marriage contract, then now we're on 138b. Yada al ha'elyona ratza notaltan ratza noteret kitsuvasa. She has the advantage. If she wants, she takes the 200 dinars, and if she wants, she takes payment for her marriage contract. Ushriv mira. Another case. Ushriv mira she'omar trumasayim zuz ploini bal choivi karoi loi noitlan v'noitlas choivoi im omar v'choivoi noitlan b'choivoi. The Batra continues, and if there was a person on his deathbed who said, give 200 dinars to so-and-so, my creditor, as is appropriate for him, the creditor takes the 200 dinars and takes payment of the debt as well. But if he said, give him 200 dinars as payment for the debt, he takes the 200 dinars as payment for the debt. Mishum da'amar karoi loi noit lan v'noit l'choi voi v'tilma karoi loi b'choi voi koma. The Gemara asks, because he says, as is appropriate for him, he takes the 200 dinars and takes payment of the debt as well, but perhaps he was saying, as is appropriate for him, as payment for the debt, and meant to only specify the amount of the debt. Amar Rav Nachman, Amar li Huna, Hamani, Rabbi Kiva hi dedayak lishni itira. Rav Nachman said, Rav Huna said to me, in accordance with whose opinion is this? It is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Kiva, who expounds superfluous language. Rabbi Kiva holds that if one uses unnecessary words, he apparently intended to add a matter. Ditnan v'lo esabo v'lo esadus af al pi shekosav lo umka v'rumo v'tzorich likach lo derech divrei Rabbi Akiva. As we learned in the Mishnah in 64a, one who sells a house without specification has sold neither the pit nor the cistern with it, even if he writes for the buyer in the bill of sale, with its depth and its height. This is because anything that is not part of the house, like pits and cisterns, must be explicitly mentioned in the contract, or else they remain in the seller's possession. And therefore, the seller must purchase for himself a path through the buyer's domain to reach whatever remains his, because he has sold the area of the house along with the house itself, and he no longer has permission to walk there. This is the statement of Rabbi Akiva. And the Chachamim say, Eino tzarich likach lo derech u'moed Rabbi Akiva mezman she'omar lo chutz me'elu she'eino tzarich likach lo derech. The rabbis say that the seller need not purchase for himself a path through the buyer's domain, as this is certainly included what he has withheld for himself from the sale. And Rabbi Akiva concedes that when the seller says to the buyer in the bill of sale, I am selling you this house apart from the pit and the cistern, he need not purchase for himself a path through the buyer's domain. Since the seller unnecessarily emphasized that the pit and the cistern are not included in the sale, he presumably intended to reserve for himself the right of access to them. Okay. Alma, apparently, Kivan lo tzarech v'kama letapoye mi'ilsa ka'asi. Apparently, according to Rabbi Akiva, since he did not need to state apart from the pit and cistern and started anyway, the seemingly superfluous statement was coming to add a matter. Since the seller unnecessarily stressed that the pit and cistern are not included in the sale, he must have intended to thereby reserve for himself the right of access. Here too, with regard to the gift given by a person on his deathbed to his creditor, since he did not need to say, as is appropriate for him, and said it anyway, this phrase was coming to add a matter, being that the 200 dinars are in addition to the debt. Tanu Abanon, Ramagaleandra שכיב מרע שאמר מונה יש לי אצל פלוני, העדים כויסבין, אף על פי שאין מכירים. לפיכך, כשהוא גויבה צורך להוריד ראיו, דברי רבי מאיר, וחכמים אומרים אין כויסבין אלא, אם כן מכירים, לפיכך, כשהוא גויבה אין צורך להוריד ראיו. The sages taught in Sefta 8:18, if there was a person on his deathbed who said, I have 100 dinars owed to me by so-and-so, the witnesses that hear this may write his statement in the document, even if they do not know whether the statement is true. Therefore, when the person's heir collects a debt, he must bring proof of the debt as a document written by these witnesses is not regarded as proof. This is the statement of Rabbi Meir. And the rabbis say the witnesses may not write the document unless they know for a fact that the statement is true. Therefore, when the heir collects the debt, he need not bring proof other than the document written by the witnesses, as it has the status of a promissory note. Amar Rav Nachman, Amar li Huna, Tana Rav Meir, Omer. Ein koisvin, v'chachamim koisvin, v'af Rav Meir lo, Amar el mishum beis din toinin. Amar Rav Dimi min harda, hilchasa, ein koisvin lebeis din toin. Rav Nachman says, Rav Huna told me that the opposite is taught in another brayta. Rabbi Meir says that the witnesses may not write his statement in a document unless they know for a fact that this statement is true. And the rabbis say that they may write it even if they do not know whether the statement is true. And even Rabbi Meir said that they may not write it is only due to the concern that it might be presented before a court that errs and allows the heirs to collect without furnishing additional proof. Rav Dim Yevnarda says the halacha is that there is no concern without the possibility of a court that errs. There is no concern that you should think that the court is making a mistake. You don't have to be concerned about that. That's what it's saying. Okay, Maishna mitachabadav merabah inchotzin ela imkin makiren v'manin ela imkin makiren leficha kois v'get chalitza v'get miyun. The Gemara asks, and in what way is this case different from Rava's statement? As Rava says, a court may not supervise chalitza unless the judges recognize the Yavam and Yavama. And a court may not supervise a declaration of the refusal of the girl upon her reaching majority to remain married to the man to whom her mother or brothers married her as a minor after the death of her father, unless they recognize the girl. It's called miyun. Therefore, another court may write a document attesting to the performance of chalitza, or a document stating that a declaration of refusal was made in a court elsewhere based on the testimony of witnesses, even if the judges do not recognize these people, relying on the presumption the first court would not have allowed the act to be performed had they not been sure of the identities of the parties. My time. What is the reason Rava said that the court must recognize the participants in these actions? Is it not due to the concern that a court that errs might write such a document based on the testimony of witnesses without verifying that the participating parties were recognized by the court where the chalitza or refusal took place? Lo. Beit Dina Batar Beit Dina. Lo Daiki. Beit Dina Batar Edim Daiki. The Gemara answers, they're not the same. No, these two issues are not the same. A court does not normally examine the act of another court. So, there is concern that the court where the document is written might assume that the court where the act took place recognizes the participating parties. But a court does normally examine the statement of witnesses. Therefore, there is no concern that it will rely on a statement written by witnesses without their knowledge of its accuracy. The Mishnah, okay, and that's the end of that. New Mishnah. Ha'av toile shumayche lechol mishir ze umashiniach talush harehu shel yoshin. The Mishnah says, it's a very short Mishnah. It's only one line. Maybe 10 words altogether. See, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 13 words. Wow. Short Mishnah. In continuation of the case discussed in the previous Mishnah of a father who wrote a document granting his property to his son, but reversed the rights to the produce during his lifetime, the Mishnah states that the father may detach produce from the land and feed the produce to whomever he wishes, and what he left detached at the time of his death belongs to all the father's heirs, not only to this son. And the Gemara says, in the last 4 lines of the Amud, so probably have to repeat it next time, but is Talush in Mechubar Lo. The Mishnah indicates that what the father left detached, yes, it is inherited by all the heirs, but the produce that is connected to the ground at the time of his death, no, it is not inherited by them. Rather, it belongs to the son who received the property.